Hi guys, this is Janae Boone, and this is going to be part 3 of the depth of content assignment. So the issue that was identified when I thought about my content area and kind of relating it back to part 2 of this entire assignment, one of the trends that I found and one that is very near and dear to my heart is diversity and inclusion. So the issue I identified was the lack of diversity in students and faculty in the business education field, leading to the lack of diversity in the business industry. Due to that, a lot of minorities are kind of taking it in their own hands and are starting up their own businesses. So they are being their own self-made entrepreneurs. So here are the facts. Like I said, that was a trend that I found apparent in business and marketing. Although you can count gender and religion as a minority as well, depending on the gender or religion, I am going to focus merely on race, not how many women or men or, I'm going to focus on race in this assignment. So when we talk about senior level positions, so your top guys in businesses, African Americans only make up a combined 7%. Even though African Americans do make up not a big chunk, but a good enough chunk of the US population, they are underrepresented in test takers when it comes to the GMAT or the graduate management admission test, which is pretty much your entrance exam for an MBA program. As far as business school goes, Black students only comprise 10%, actually less than 10% of the national enrollment. And a lot of experts are saying that universities are not really doing enough to attract more Black students or minorities to their program. So as somebody that is Black, I understand a lot of this. I see it from my point of view. I've seen it in college admissions. I've seen it in college programs. I've seen it when I've tried to get a job, and everything is as true and as raw as it could possibly be. So a lot of Black students, they do face some barriers that could keep them away from these business schools, which include the cost of the degree, shortage of mentors, which I will touch on that in a second, and the lack of diverse leadership at colleges. I'll also touch on that in the next few slides. So of all the MBA programs, I did want to point out that Michigan State does currently lead the world in top MBA programs for minority students, and they currently have 20% of their students that count as an underrepresented minority. Now you look at 20% and it doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not, but 20% is a lot better than a lot of other elite universities, their numbers in their business programs. So one glaring reason from looking at different case studies where students have kind of spoke up on the issue is that there are no minority mentors, any leadership at the US level, any leadership in business level, the business industry, Black faculty members or minority faculty members, for these students to kind of look up to. So last school year, 52% of the state students were minority, but only 20% of teachers were minorities. Now, this stat is referring to North Carolina, because although we are talking about business education at the college level, education starts at kindergarten or pre-K for most. So that education that you start getting in kindergarten matters even when you're in college. And what we are seeing is that, and this is not any way to say anything bad about any other race of teachers, but a lot of our minority students, they like to have a teacher or somebody that is at their school that looks like them, that they can go to and that they can come to if they do need help. Kind of somebody that is going to look out for them. And they may find that in a teacher that is not a minority. But for this sole purpose, these students were concerned about there were no teachers of minority for them to go to when it comes to being an underrepresented minority at their school and in their position. So a legislative report released late last year shows that 25% of the state's K through 12 students are African American, while less than 15% of the state's teachers are African American. Now we're breaking this down to just African Americans. That is the number we have. Now, if we really want to get in depth about per county, that is going to go into the next slide, which is actually going to give you a more broken down look at how Black teachers are underrepresented in the classroom. Now, this is for the state of North Carolina. This is the most updated breakdown of it. I want to say this was made in February of 2021. So this is the breakdown that we have of kind of our more common counties. They picked, I'm guessing this was out of Raleigh. So they kind of picked counties around them. As you can see, Wake County is a huge county, but the numbers and the scales do not lie. You can see that there is a shortage in teachers that are of minority or persons of color. And that is really affecting our minority students down the road. So as I talked about, there are a lot of minorities who are, they're not able to go this business route because maybe they haven't gotten accepted into schools or the program they're looking for. So a lot of them are skipping out on that completely and are actually starting their own business. They are becoming their own business owners. So Black or African Americans owned 124,000 employer businesses in 2017. So that was 2.2% of the 5.7 million employer businesses in the United States. Now, this number has done nothing but rise, especially with COVID going on. But this is what a lot of people who are interested in being business executives and business owners, this is what they are having to result to creating their own business. This graph to the side is giving you more of a breakdown per racial or ethnic identity of the owner. So when trying to brainstorm ways to integrate more minorities into business education and the business industry, There were a couple of ideas, but these three at the bottom were the three that I feel like were more beneficial and would have the most success at the collegiate level or the high school level when it comes to trying to get something started. So first, a racial equity action plan. And what that does is it pretty much is a plan put in place for you to work on your inclusion, work on diverse population, and work on becoming knowledgeable about the diversity issues that we do have in the world right now. So I broke it down into some important points for each one of them. So inclusivity for minorities, making your minority students feel inclusive on their campus, which was another reason that students were not going to business schools. They were not feeling accepted. They didn't feel comfortable. Implementing diverse student body or faculty, bringing in minorities for students to kind of look up to and have somebody there that, like I said, looks like them, and becoming knowledgeable. Be knowledgeable about the diverse traditions and inclusive efforts that you need to have for these students. If you are getting an action plan started, you need to be knowledgeable about the students and the type of students you're going to have coming to your campus. A diversity initiative. There are different parts in a diversity initiative, but I picked these three as the most important ones. So an academic initiative, partnerships and mentorships, with mentorships playing the biggest role. Implementing mentors of color for minority students that are enrolled at the respective school. I just think that builds that comfort level for your students to want to stay and to want to actually go to the school. Partnerships, form these collaborations with businesses, organizations, and more that kind of promote the cultural exchanges in the research ventures that you are looking to have at your university to promote diversity and inclusion. And academic initiatives, letting students know that you are supporting them by providing them with scholarships. I mean, minority scholarships, minority fellowships, offering conferences, professional development. Those all fall under academic initiatives. Lastly, education, and I think the education portion could essentially come in with all of them. Even though I did pick one solution that I felt was best, the education portion could be used in whichever solution you did decide on. So I think the most important thing when doing the educating is acknowledging that there is a lack of diversity in the first place. A lot of people are oblivious, and they'll say that they accepted the best students. You know, it wasn't a race thing, it wasn't this and it wasn't that. But there is a such thing as cultural blindness. And I think that does tend to happen in the admissions building a lot of times. A lot of your people that are making these decisions do have cultural blindness and don't actually see what they are doing. Make diversity training available, but make it optional. I don't believe in forcing any type of training on anybody because there are numerous implications that could come back and bite you. When it comes to that, when you start forcing things on people, they tend to rebel. So make it optional for those who want to actually learn more. And manage your use of language. This is the biggest thing that I see at the high school level when it comes to my minority students. Teachers and the way that they actually socialize with these students, it turns them off. So at the college level, when they are coming in for these open houses, be mindful of what you say, be mindful of how you say it, because a lot of the students now are a lot smarter and are quicker and wittier at picking up when you are, so to speak, trying to challenge them or trying to disrespect them. So just mind your language, be mindful of what you say and how you say it. So my solution, obviously, I came up with about 5 solutions that could be utilized to increase the number of minorities. But of the ones that I mentioned, I truly believe that a racial equity action plan is the best one, just based off of universities that have already implemented it. Harvard Business School was the one blueprint that I looked at, that they really used that action plan, and they were able to actually increase their enrollment as far as minorities went. So why exactly is an action plan or racial equity action plan viable? Kent State University, Virginia Commonwealth, and The Ohio State University have all implemented action plans for various academic programs that have an unbalanced minority enrollment. I think for this solution, the good does end up outweighing the bad. It does take a little bit of time to get to your end product. But I think once you get to the end of it and you're able to implement it, it's worth it in the end. So like I said, Harvard Business School, their updated class program or profile has drastically changed as far as enrollment goes. So for the 2022 MBA class at Harvard Business School, they currently have 48% of their students that are affiliated as an underrepresented group, which will count as Asian American, African American, or Hispanic. I think those numbers are impressive, especially compared to previous years. So some of the implications that can come with an equity action plan, the biggest one I thought of that was direct was funds or money that they use or put into creating this action plan. So Harvard Business School committed $25 million to their racial equity plan. And they are hoping for contributions from alumni and partners over the next couple of years. The one thing I thought about is that what happens if you start seeing donors that are not seeing the results that are coming out of this, and they no longer want to put any money towards it. Once the funds just run out, what is the next step? Where does it leave the plan? Is there a backup plan for where funds could come from? Is there a backup plan to how exactly you would operate this, especially if a lot of this money is going towards academic initiatives with scholarships and fellowships? How does that play a part in the action plan if the funds do kind of run dry? Indirect, I just kind of see this with everything that they try to support, any group or organization that supports a specific race or ethnicity. I see the indirect implication that maybe the majority which would be anybody that is not a minority, revolt over the action plan and they start a bigger mess. One thing that I kind of related back to is the Black Lives Matter movement. Even though the action plan is meant for something good, there are always going to be people that don't really necessarily see a reasoning behind a racial equity plan, and they are more than willing to revolt and provoke. And I don't see Harvard Business School wanting to have that kind of backlash on their program, especially since it is a nationally noted program. If that were to happen with them, what would their next step be as far as the action plan goes? Again, thank you all for watching to the very end. I hope you all have a great remainder of your summer.